This is John Martinka, and welcome to the Getting the Deal Done podcast. My special guest today from Palm Desert, California, is Mike Horne. Mike leads the People Dividend movement and puts out the People Dividend podcast and blog and works with companies of all different sizes, from those with the founder at the helm to publicly traded companies and their C-suite people. Welcome, Mike.
I am so delighted to be here, John, and grateful to be on Getting the Deal Done. Because in most of the client groups that I work with, that's what the executives are looking for is how do we make progress? How do we get something done? How do we move from state A to state B, which is hopefully a better and improved place. So I'm looking forward to talking about all of these topics relative to people-centered performance, to executive performance, and to organizational performance.
Well, Mike, one of the things we talked about is in preparation for this is work in today's new era of how things are handled. Share some thoughts on that, please.
Well, there's so much change at work, particularly on the American landscape. I have experience leading and working around the globe, but as I think about the American work landscape, I mean, we're on the verge at the dawn of the 4-day work week. It's coming. Uh, and we are in an era now where people work in different rhythms and different flow states. I have one child who works for one of the biggest companies on the planet. They're certainly back to a 3 or 4 day work week on the campus. I have another child who works for a very successful startup. They've been remote for almost ever. So how do we, given the advent, the increase, and I'm sure that you see this in your work, with people making more of the gig economy part of their life as they string together multiple jobs, how do we, as founders, as leaders in organizations, continue to get the most from people? Because people are at the heart of the enterprise.
Yeah, they always are. And my favorite story on that is a business seller who didn't want the buyer to meet the key management people before the deal closed, and he looked them in the eye across the table and just he literally said, "You may think I'm buying your company. I'm really buying your people."
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's what a great point. And I can relate that to my work with founders. I think about one example of a person who grew a vineyard in the wine industry to a very successful level. The question was really about taking sales further because, as you know, been so much consolidation in that industry. Making a mark in the marketplace is challenging and difficult to do. So really working with an individual on what would be next for that winery and for that business, all the way to my recent work with a founder of what is now a household name company. I can't give you too many details about it, but who grew a very successful business very rapidly. And the board was frustrated. This is a very smart individual, and building organizations in the billions requires a lot of teamwork. So, working with individuals who are founders, either on skills or personalities, is familiar territory with me, and certainly their interaction with their boards.
Yeah, the well, we call it the owner dependency in my line of work, and it's hard to let go. Delegating can be tough. Uh,
I have one client, John, where I worked with a founder who became the CEO. And certainly the board was torn because given the innovations that this individual had made in the marketplace, given his status in the marketplace, the board was reluctant to release him, despite the chaos that he was causing in the executive ranks. But they, were stuck with, well, he's got such a presence in this industry. He's so important. Um, And I think, despite multiple recommendations that he had reached his capacity, I think they couldn't let go of him. They retained him, and I think the chaos reigns in that organization.
Yep, and yeah, there's a lot of stories about that all from all size businesses. Say, I want to go back a little bit to your 4-day work week uh, comment. We've heard for years, that a lot of, especially politicians, say, "Well, we want a 4-day work week. We want people to work less hours so they have more time for themselves." But I think I'm sure you would agree with me. People in the C-suite, business owners, founders, those who, shall we say, have to eat what they kill. It's not a 4-day work week. It's not a 40-hour week. It's, they work a little harder than just punching in.
Well, I think that's true. And I think, certainly I'm of a generation where, I didn't mind if people called me very late into the evening or very early in the morning. It was sort of this always on work ethic. I think that has certainly shifted. That continues to morph. I mean, certainly as we think about Generation Z, our first sort of digital experts in the workplace, as we think about millennials, and even as we think about Gen Xers. Gen Xers really brought to the workplace new desires for work-life flexibility. So I think there are, changes around all of this. I do agree with you that most of the folks with whom I interact, who are in the C-suite or who are aspiring into the C-suite, are driven. Now, how you manifest those drives and how they show up in the workplace, essentially, if I was to summarize my life in 6 words, I fix people, teams, and organizations. That's what I do as a
Write that down. That's a good
organization,
one.
as an organization development specialist, as a social psychologist. I mean, this is, it's really thinking about what we can do in these situations to make things better.
Yeah. Okay. So the People Dividend, you created that. That is your one of your brands. Um, Talk about it. And I think it when I hear it, what I wrote down in my notes when we talked before was the workplace culture.
Boy, so right, and inclusion and inclusivity. I think I have an experience that's far too common. Uh, at times in my organizational careers, I mean, whether in a consulting company or a big Fortune 50 company, or in much smaller startup environments, there were times when I felt just like a cog in a wheel, that my manager really wasn't interested, that I could show up at my weekly one-on-ones and say, "Hey, how do you think I'm doing? Here's the progress on this. What do you think?" I don't think they were really all that interested. They would nod their heads and say, "Oh, great work, good job." And it grew out of this feeling of being a cog in a wheel, which also, meant how do we help managers who already have a ton on their plate, with uh, engaging people who are looking for a work-life blend, who are looking for these different things. How do we engage them in meaningful ways so that as the workplace evolves in this AI-generated world, what do we do differently? And I think it's all built around um, uh, dignity, kindness, and respect, these humanistic values. And the easiest suggestion, or the best suggestion I have for your listeners, whether you're an owner or whether you're part of the owner's team, is that if you want to create a better workplace, start by saying hello. It's really simple. Just say hello. You don't know what happened to somebody 5 minutes before they saw you. You don't know what's going to happen to them 5 minutes later. But you do have that moment to see a person not just as an element of production, but as somebody essential to your mission.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've known many business owners over the years, and the ones who will walk through their factory or warehouse, and everyone is saying hi to them because they know they're a friend, not just a boss slash owner.
Well,
And
it's so true. And, American business, and that's generally what we're talking about. Most of my work is in the US, um, where I coach leaders in the C-suite or people aspiring to the C-suite in 3, 6, or 12-month increments. I do some work for companies where they give me a group of people and I work with them for 16 to 18 months. And the third thing I do is really, driven out of my expertise in organization development. I just finished a project with a client restructuring their research and development group. I've just done helping a new executive on board as the new CEO. I'm working on that transition for 6 months. So it's really this coaching, these leadership development programs, these specialized organization development interventions that give my clients the lift to succeed. This isn't for fun or fluff, but it is really about embedding the people dividend principles so that you can bring more of who you are to what you do.
now, Mike, your work is from the C-suite with large corporations to those who would like to make it to the C-suite to, founders, whether they hire you or their board hires you, the VC hires you, depending on the situation, right? Talk a little bit
Correct.
about the differences in working with those variety of people at different levels in their businesses.
Yeah, I am so attracted, John. It's a great question to working with goal-oriented people. And most of the executives that I've had the good fortune of working with, whether they're entrepreneurs, whether they're building their company, or whether they're in a Fortune 100 company, is the incredible drive that these individuals bring. The people that I work with are successful individuals. I mean, they've achieved, they've risen. I work with a lot of folks, scientists, engineers, just given my background in biopharma and biotech and high tech. I have the great privilege of working with scientists and engineers and technologists who have often reached the top of their game because of their technical abilities. Looking as a social scientist, I know that we have a 45-year history of knowing that you shouldn't promote people on the basis of their technical abilities. It doesn't make a relationship to leadership. And yet, these very people that I work with who are really smart, really driven, successful, and generally, I would say creative and collaborative people. I mean, it's not usually what you put with a scientist or a technologist or a high-level engineer, but people who often don't have the kinds of who would benefit from increasing um, the effective use of their interpersonal skills.
Yeah, that's really a powerful statement. And where I see it in my work is the really super salesperson who gets promoted to sales manager and they don't know how to manage. They know how to sell, and they don't know how to transmit to others how to sell. So
Or, I work with clients also. I mean, as individuals, sometimes, where they're not having a big corporation or any corporate money or VC money behind them, who come to me as individuals because they've either, they left the lab bench, they went on to manage a small team. Somebody saw something in them. They got promoted to a much bigger role, like a VP, ascendant to a C-suite. Um, and it's these people who are in transition, who have uh, claims and stakes in big universities and postdoc degrees. I love working with people on these kinds of transitions uh, so that they are able to lead with greater intent and to get things done through people.
yeah. So you I'm just looking at my notes and your website. A couple things. You nurture authentic leadership. You work on integrity by design, uh, and other things. And I see one on your website, understanding team needs. So again, not just the leader, but what everyone else wants. So talk a little bit about those things.
Well, my last book, Before the People Dividend, now available, People Dividend Leadership Strategies for Unlocking Employee Potential. My last book was, here it is, Integrity by Design, uh, Working and Living Authentically, still available on Amazon. It's about 2.5 years old at this time that we're recording. And my work in this book was really around how to work and live authentically. Marshall Goldsmith, New York Times #1 best-selling author of several books, often known as the world's best coach, said about Integrity by Design that it's a lesson in authenticity. Read it and it may change the way you lead in life. This is an inspiring and practical handbook for executives and leaders. It is about congruency. It's about seeing if we can align what you say with what you do, and even better, if we can create this congruency in terms of thoughts, words, and actions. It's a blueprint for that. It's about bringing more of who you are to what you do and adopting approaches that help people to bring more of who they are to what they do. It all follows from a lot of my work building great places to work. I spent a good chunk of my career working with companies who wanted to be on the Fortune 100, on the Fortune magazine list of great places to work. So I've engineered a lot of social systems to do that.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's really come about in the last, what, 10, 20 years, at 20 at the most, is the business journals all have best places to work
Hmm.
awards and that, and rather than just, how big are you, how fast are you growing, but do the people like being there?
Yes, right. Well, if people like being there, then there's likely to be better customer engagement and better customer retention. You're going to do better on your. I think there's a relationship between high employee engagement and a high net promoter score, if you want to use that terminology. There's very high correlation between these kinds of things. In fact, I was doing some research at one point looking into the feedback that employees provide to one another and how employees engage one another, and seeing if there was a relationship within those teams where there was high engagement and high customer engagement. And of course, there is.
Yeah.
It's all about success and money, and not only money, but winning at the important goals that you have.
My last topic for our conversation here is would be to talk a little bit about your new book, The People Dividend. And if there's anything, is there anything else you'd like to get out before we talk about that, your new book?
Well, just how our work with owners and founders is so critical because they cast such a long shadow over an organization of any size. Whether what's an organization? It's when you have more than two people, it starts getting difficult to count. That makes it an organization.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about your new book.
Yeah, the People Dividend: Leadership Strategies for Unlocking Employee Potential. I am delighted to have this book out into the marketplace. It is short, easy to read, easy to digest, and both a call to reflection and a call to action in order to advance the principles of humanistic management. Look, we've gone through a couple of eras. We've gone through the um, scientific school of management, thinking about efficiency improvements. Then we moved into a customer service era, thinking about service improvements that people could make. And now, as we enter into the AI era, and we see these changes going on in the workplace, this is a call for a push for humanistic values at work in order to create engagement, and therefore, just as we discussed, companies that have a profitable brand or profitable or are profitable.
Okay. Well, Mike, I want to thank you. Very, very interesting, fascinating. Everything you're saying, I have seen done, in my world of owners who still are with the company to the ones who do the exact opposite.
Yeah, that's
So,
great, John. I am so grateful to have been a guest on your podcast. I'm so I hope this is okay to say on your podcast. John's going to be a guest on the People Dividend Podcast. I encourage people to tune in there, and I'm really looking forward to John's appearance, where we're going to, dive more deeply into these topics of getting the deal done.
So your books are available on Amazon,
Yes.
and your podcast is available on your website, Mike hyphen.
Mike-horn.com or any platform where you listen, visit my website. That's the easiest place to pick it up.
Yeah, and that's HORNE.com.
Yes.
And I know you have a blog there and ways for people to reach out to you. So uh, thank you very much for being here. And again, I look forward to being on your podcast shortly.
Thank you so much, John. It's been a great pleasure to be on Getting the Deal Done with you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.